The conference hall floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and glass that orbited no planet. Inside, representatives from 47 different species sat in their specialized chairs, breathing their preferred atmospheres through personal shields. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few were nothing more than clouds of gas held together by magnetic fields. They all shared one thing in common: fear. Ambassador David Chen stood at the human podium, his dark suit looking plain compared to the exotic clothing and natural displays around him. He was a short man with gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice carried clearly through the translation devices. "The answer is no," he said simply. The chamber erupted in noise. Clicks, whistles, roars, and sounds that human ears could not properly process filled the air. The speaker, a tall insect-like being called Lixtar, raised 4 of his arms for silence. "Ambassador Chen," Lixitar's translator made his words sound calm and reasonable. "You do not understand the situation. The Krell Dominion cannot be stopped. We are not offering surrender as an insult. We are trying to save your species." Chen looked around the room. He saw despair in every face and gesture. These were not cowards. These were the survivors of 300 years of war against an enemy that could not be beaten. "I understand perfectly," Chen replied. "You want humanity to accept Krell rule before they come to destroy us. You want us to give up our freedom to keep our lives, yes." The shout came from the Valorian section. Ambassador Kreenoth stood, his blue skin darker than usual with emotion. "Yes, because there is no shame in surviving. My world tried to fight 6 months ago. We used 214 different weapons. Energy beams, kinetic missiles, chemical warfare, biological agents, radiation bursts, and things we invented just for that battle." "Do you know what happened?" Chen said nothing. Everyone in the room knew what happened to Valoria. The Krell shields adapted to everything. Kreenoth continued, his voice breaking. "Every single weapon we fired, their shields learned to stop it within seconds. By the end, we were throwing rocks at them, and even those bounced off. They took their time destroying our cities. They made us watch. 3 billion of my people died because we thought we could fight." The silence that followed was heavy. Chen looked down at his datapad, then back up at the assembly. "How many species have fought the Krell?" he asked. Lixitar answered. 62 species have engaged in military action against the Krell Dominion over the past 3 centuries. "And how many have won even a single battle?" "None." "How many have damaged a Krell ship beyond repair?" Lixtar's mandibles clicked together slowly. "None." "How many have even scratched their paint?" "Ambassador Chen, this is not helpful. The facts are clear. The Krell possess adaptive shield technology that is beyond our understanding. It learns and evolves faster than we can think. Every weapon we create, every tactic we try becomes useless the moment they experience it. They are not just advanced, they are insurmountable." Chen nodded slowly. He touched his data pad and a hologram appeared above the center of the chamber. It showed a blue and green planet being torn apart by red beams of light. Ships that looked like black crystals hung in orbit, methodically destroying everything below. "This is Valoria," Chen said. "I watched this recording 5 times. I studied every second of it. I wanted to understand what we are facing. Then you understand why we must surrender." Lixtar said gently. "No, I understand why you think that way. But I also noticed something else." Chen zoomed in on one of the Krell ships. "Every weapon you used was sophisticated, advanced, built on millions of years of accumulated galactic science. Energy weapons that can crack moons, missiles that can chase targets through hyperspace, biological weapons that can rewrite DNA. You threw everything at them. And it failed," Kreenoth said bitterly. "Because you were trying to beat them at their own game," Chen replied. "You were using advanced technology against advanced technology. You were playing by their rules." A Matharian delegate, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish, spoke through bubbles that the translator converted to words. "What other rules exist? Technology is technology. Science is science. The Krell have mastered it better than anyone." Chen smiled, and it was not a happy expression. "Respectfully, that's where you're wrong. You've all been part of the galactic community for so long that you forgot something important. There is always another way." He pulled up another image. This one showed Earth's history, images of humans throughout the ages. Humans with stone tools, humans with wooden ships, humans splitting atoms, humans walking on their moon. "Humanity has only been in space for 200 years, Chen said. "We only discovered faster than light travel 30 years ago." By your standards, we are children playing with toys we barely understand. But we have something that 3 centuries of losing has made you forget. And what is that? Lickstar asked. We are too stupid to know when we are beaten. The chamber erupted again, but this time there was confusion mixed with the anger. Chen raised his hand. I do not mean that as an insult to my own species. I mean it as a simple fact. Humans have a very bad habit of refusing to accept reality. When someone tells us something is impossible, we hear it as a challenge. When someone tells us we cannot win, we look for a way to cheat. When the rules say we will lose, we break the rules. The Krell cannot be beaten by breaking rules, Kreenoth said. They can only be beaten by superior technology, and we do not have it. You do not have it, Chen agreed. But maybe we are not looking for the right kind of technology. He pulled up a final image. It showed Earth's moon, and on its dark side 10 massive construction sites glowed with activity. Thousands of ships moved around them like insects around a hive. For the past 18 months since we learned about the Krell threat, humanity has been working on something. 10 projects, each one based on a different principle. Some use physics that you consider settled science. Some use theories that your scientists abandoned as useless centuries ago. And some use ideas that are so stupid, so primitive that no advanced civilization would ever consider them. What kind of weapons are you building? Lickstar leaned forward with interest. That information is classified, Chen said. But I can tell you this. We are not trying to beat the Krell at their own game. We are changing the game entirely. A Centaurian delegate, a being with 4 eyes and crystalline skin, stood up. Ambassador Chen, I understand that your species is young and optimistic, but optimism will not stop Krell warships. Even if you build unusual weapons, their shields will adapt. They always adapt. Maybe, Chen said. Or maybe their shields can only adapt to things they understand. Maybe if we hit them with something completely outside their experience, something that does not follow the rules they expect, we can hurt them. And if you fail? Kreenoth asked quietly. If your weapons do not work? The Krell will destroy Earth just like they destroyed Valoria. Your species will end. Then we will end standing up, Chen said firmly. We will end fighting. We will end trying everything we can think of, no matter how crazy it seems, because that is what humans do. We do not surrender. We do not give up. And we definitely do not go quietly. He looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. I'm not asking you to fight with us. I am not asking you to risk your people for a plan that might fail. All I am asking is that you give us time. Give us a chance to try. If we succeed, maybe we can turn this war around. If we fail, you can surrender then, and at least you will know that every possibility was explored. Lickstar was quiet for a long moment. His mandibles clicked together as he thought. Finally he spoke. The Krell Armada is currently conquering the outer reaches. Intelligence suggests they will turn toward human space within 2 years. Can your projects be ready by then? They will have to be, Chen said. Then we will wait, Lickstar decided. We will not surrender yet. But Ambassador Chen, understand this. If your weapons fail, if the Krell destroy Earth, the rest of the galaxy will accept their terms. We cannot let more worlds burn for false hope. Understood, Chen said. And thank you. As the session ended and the delegates began to leave, Kreenoth approached Chen. The Valorian looked older than he had at the start of the meeting, as if remembering his world's death had aged him. I hope you are right, Kreenoth said quietly. I hope your weapons work, because if they do not, your people will learn what mine learned. They will learn that some enemies cannot be beaten no matter how brave you are. Chen put a hand on the alien's shoulder. Maybe. But if we are going to die anyway, I would rather die trying something new than die accepting someone else's decision that we are too weak to fight. Kreenoth nodded slowly and walked away. Chen stood alone in the empty chamber for a moment, looking at the hologram of the construction sites on Earth's moon. 10 projects, 10 desperate attempts to break an unbreakable enemy. He touched his communicator. Chen to Earth Command. The Council has given us our time. How are the projects progressing? The reply came back immediately. All 10 are on schedule, Ambassador. The scientists say 3 of them might actually work. The rest are what they call scientifically questionable. Good, Chen said with a slight smile. The Krell have seen scientifically sound. Let us show them scientifically questionable. Chen out. He left the conference hall and boarded his shuttle back to Earth. Behind him, the rest of the galaxy watched and waited, some with hope, some with pity, all of them certain of one thing: humanity was about to learn a hard lesson about the real universe. They had no idea that humanity was about to teach one instead. On the dark side of Earth's moon, 10 massive construction projects continued without rest. Engineers and scientists from dozens of human colonies worked around the clock. Some of the projects made sense to them. Others seemed insane. But they all had one thing in common. None of them followed the established rules of galactic warfare. The Krell shields could adapt to anything they had seen before. They could learn from experience and evolve their defenses. They were, by every measure, perfect protection against known weapons. But humans were very good at making unknown weapons. In her lab on Luna Station 7, Dr. Sarah Okonkwo looked at the data from Project 3 and shook her head. According to every law of physics that the galaxy accepted, what she was building should not work. The energy requirements were too high. The structural stress would tear the weapon apart. The targeting system relied on mathematics that most species considered impossible, but the test results said it would work anyway. She touched the massive machine in front of her, feeling the cold metal under her palm. This was not elegant. It was not sophisticated. It was barely controlled chaos wrapped in a metal shell. It was also going to punch a hole in space-time itself. "I hope you know what you are doing," she whispered to the machine. Across the moon, 9 other projects moved toward completion. 9 other teams of humans built 9 other impossible weapons. Some would work. Some would fail. But all of them represented the same thing: humanity's refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. The Krell were coming. They had conquered 62 species. They had won every battle for 300 years. Their shields had never failed. They were about to meet a species that did not care about their track record. The galaxy said no gun could break the Krell. Humanity was building 10 that would. 18 months had passed since Ambassador Chen had made his promise to the Galactic Council. 18 months of constant work, failed experiments, and breakthroughs that defied conventional science. Now, in a secure briefing room buried deep under the Rocky Mountains, the results of that work were about to be revealed. Admiral Maria Torres stood at the front of the room, her uniform crisp despite the fact that she had not slept in 36 hours. Around her sat representatives from every major human military organization, key scientists from each project, and observers from 12 alien species brave enough to come see what humanity had built. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored guest," Torres began, "what you are about to see is classified at the highest level. Some of you will think we have lost our minds. Others will think we are wasting resources on fantasies. I ask only that you watch the full presentation before making judgments." She activated the holographic display. A massive 3-dimensional image appeared showing 10 different weapons. Each one looked different from the others. Some were ships. Some were missiles. One looked like a station. Another looked like nothing more than a metal ring floating in space. "These are humanity's 10 answers to the Krell problem," Torres said. "Each weapon is based on a different principle. Each one attacks the Krell shields in a way that has never been tried before. We call them Projects 1 through 10, but they have operational codenames as well." She highlighted the first weapon. It looked like a long rail extending from a massive power core. Project 1, God Strike. This is a relativistic kinetic impactor. It fires a small slug of tungsten at 98% the speed of light. The Krell shields work by analyzing incoming threats and adapting their defense frequency to match. But Godstrike moves so fast that the time between detection and impact is less than a microsecond. The shields do not have time to adapt before the impact. A Centaurian observer raised one of his crystalline hands. But kinetic weapons have been tried. The Krell shield stopped them. "Conventional kinetic weapons travel at a few kilometers per second," explained Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, a tall woman with sharp eyes and graying hair. "Godstrike travels at nearly 300,000 kilometers per second. At that speed, even a small object carries more energy than a nuclear bomb. The shields would need to adapt instantly, and according to our analysis, they cannot." Torres moved to the second weapon. This one looked like a standard missile, but with strange crystalline components inside. Project 2, Ghost Strike. This uses quantum entanglement. We create 2 particles that are quantum linked, then separate them. One stays in the missile's core. The other is placed in a second warhead. When the missile enters Krell's shield range, we detonate the particle inside. Because of quantum entanglement, the explosion affects both particles simultaneously. The entangled particle inside the second warhead explodes while that warhead is still outside the shields. But since the particles are linked, the explosion manifests inside the shields as well. The room was silent. Finally, a Matherian observer spoke through bubbles. That violates the principle of locality. Information cannot travel faster than light. The principle of locality is a guideline, not a law, Dr. Okonkwo replied. And quantum entanglement does not technically transfer information. It transfers state. The Krell shields are designed to stop things moving from outside to inside. They are not designed to stop things that are already inside because they exist in two places at once. Admiral Torres continued through the list. Project 3, Horizon Break, used artificial gravity generators to create a localized space-time distortion. It would literally bend space around a Krell ship, crushing it from all directions at once. The shields could not adapt because they would be adapting to the ship's own mass pressing inward. Project 4, Causality Cage, was perhaps the strangest. It used experimental quantum technology to disconnect a small area of space from the normal flow of time. Anything inside the cage would experience time differently than the rest of the universe. A Krell ship caught in the cage might experience 1,000 years in a single second, aging to dust instantly. Project 5, Gravity Lance, was simpler. It created a beam of gravitational force so intense that it would compress matter at the atomic level. The Krell shield stopped energy and matter, but gravity was neither. It was a distortion of space-time itself. Project 6, Neural Cascade, targeted the Krell themselves rather than their ships. It broadcast a signal that interfered with neural pathways. The Krell had a hive mind connection between ships. This weapon would turn that connection into a feedback loop that paralyzed their crews. Project 7, Dimensional Anchor, used a theoretical form of exotic matter to lock a region of space in place relative to absolute space. A ship hit by this weapon would continue moving at its current velocity relative to absolute space, but absolute space itself was moving due to the expansion of the universe. The ship would appear to accelerate wildly in random directions, tearing itself apart. Project 8, Phase Disruptor, altered the quantum phase of matter. It would make the atoms in a Krell ship temporarily unable to interact with each other. The ship would simply fall apart at the molecular level as its own structure forgot how to hold itself together. Project 9, Zero-Point Extraction, tapped into the quantum foam of space itself and extracted energy from it in a directed beam. This beam carried so much power that it could overwhelm any shield by sheer brute force. The problem was that each shot had a 50% chance of creating a small black hole. They were still working on that issue. And then there was Project 10. Torres paused before describing it. Project 10 does not have a codename yet. It is still highly experimental, and we are not certain it will work. But if it does, it will end the war. She pulled up the schematic. It looked like a missile, but the warhead section was filled with computer systems instead of explosives. Project 10 is a quantum virus, Dr. Okonkwo explained. The Krell operate through a hive mind. All their ships are connected by quantum communication that cannot be intercepted or jammed. We have developed a computer virus that can travel along quantum-entangled links. Once one Krell ship is infected, the virus spreads to every other ship instantaneously. It does not damage their systems. Instead, it does something more permanent. It breaks the hive mind connection and forces each Krell into individual consciousness. The room erupted in shocked noise. A Valorian observer stood up, his blue skin pale. You are talking about fundamentally changing a species at the mental level. That is biological warfare of the worst kind. The Krell are not biological, Dr. Okonkwo said calmly. They are cybernetic entities with organic brains connected to machine bodies through quantum links. This weapon targets the links, not the biology. And yes, it will change them. It will make them individuals instead of a collective. We consider that an acceptable outcome. You consider destroying their entire civilization acceptable? The Valorian demanded. I consider it better than them destroying ours, Torres replied coldly. Project 10 is a last resort weapon. We will only use it if everything else fails. But make no mistake, if we must choose between the Krell civilization and ours, we choose ours. She looked around the room. I know some of you find these weapons disturbing. I know they do not follow established warfare protocols. But the Krell did not follow those protocols when they destroyed Valoria. They did not follow them when they killed 62 other species over 3 centuries. We are fighting for survival, and in survival there are no rules except winning. Captain Marcus Webb stood up from the back of the room. He was a short, muscular man with scars on his face from a training accident. He was also the best pilot in the human fleet. I have tested 3 of these weapons in simulation, Webb said. God Strike, Ghost Strike, and Causality Cage. I can tell you that they work. They are dangerous, unpredictable, and absolutely nothing like conventional weapons. But they work. The question is not whether we can hurt the Krell. The question is whether we can hurt them badly enough to make them stop. We do not need to destroy them completely, Torres said. We just need to hurt them enough that they decide we are not worth the effort. If we can make them bleed, make them fear, make them understand that conquering humanity will cost them more than they are willing to pay, then we win. She displayed a star chart. According to our intelligence, the Krell Armada is currently 2 years away from human space. They are finishing their conquest of the outer reaches, systematically destroying any resistance they find. Once they are done, they will turn their full attention to us. 2 years is not enough time to mass-produce these weapons, a human general objected. Most of them are still prototypes. We have maybe 10 to 15 copies of each weapon, not enough to equip a full fleet. Then we will use them strategically, Torres said. We will not try to fight the Krell in a traditional battle. We will use hit-and-run tactics, ambushes, surgical strikes. We will test our weapons against their scouts and outlying ships. We will learn what works and what does not. And if we are lucky, we will learn how to mass-produce the successful designs before the main armada arrives. Dr. Okonkwo added, we are also willing to share these technologies with other species. The Galactic Council has expressed interest in several of our projects. If we can get other species building these weapons, we multiply our firepower. You would share this technology? The Centaurian observer asked in surprise. Even though it gives you a strategic advantage? A strategic advantage is useless if we lose the war, Torres replied. We would rather share the technology and win together than keep it secret and lose alone. The briefing continued for another 3 hours. Each project team presented their data, explained their theories, and answered questions. Some of the explanations made sense. Others sounded like pure insanity. But every team could demonstrate that their weapon worked at least in controlled tests. As the meeting ended and people filed out, several alien observers approached Torres. Admiral, a question, the Metherian said through bubbles. Why 10 different weapons? Why not focus all your resources on the most promising design? Torres smiled slightly. Because we do not know which one will work in actual combat. The Krell shields are adaptive. They might find a way to counter God Strike but not Ghost Strike. They might stop Gravity Lance but not Phase Disruptor. By building 10 different weapons based on 10 different principles, we make sure that they cannot adapt to all of them at once. Even if 9 of our weapons fail, the 10th might succeed. That is inefficient, the Centaurian said. It spreads your resources too thin. It is also human, Torres replied. We have a saying, do not put all your eggs in one basket. We would rather have 10 possible solutions than one perfect solution that might not work. As the alien observers left, Webb approached Torres. Do you really think this will work, Admiral? Torres was quiet for a moment. I think it has to work, Captain. Because the alternative is extinction, and I am not ready to let humanity end without a fight. Neither am I, Webb agreed. He looked at the hologram still floating above the table, showing all 10 weapons. These are crazy, insane. Half of them violate physics as we understand it. And that is exactly why they might work, Torres said. The Krell have fought 62 species. All of those species used conventional weapons based on conventional science. We are giving them something unconventional. Something they have never seen before. Something that does not follow the rules they expect. She touched the hologram, making it rotate. Somewhere out there, the Krell are coming. They think they are invincible. They think no weapon can break their shields. They are about to learn that they are wrong. Because humans do not play by the rules. We break them. Webb nodded. When do we start field testing? In 3 weeks, we will send a small task force to intercept a Krell scout group near the Proxima system. You will command it. Take God Strike and Ghost Strike. See if they work against real Krell shields in real combat conditions. And if they do not work, Torres met his eyes. Then we try projects 3 through 9. And if those do not work, we use Project 10. We keep trying until something works, or until we run out of options. But we do not surrender. We do not give up. Is that clear? Crystal clear, Admiral. As Webb left the briefing room, Torres stood alone, looking at the hologram of humanity's 10 weapons. 10 desperate attempts to break an unbreakable enemy, 10 gambles against impossible odds. But as she had told the Council 18 months ago, humans were too stupid to know when they were beaten. And sometimes being too stupid to quit was the same thing as being brave enough to win. On the far side of the galaxy, the Krell Dominion received intelligence about human weapons development. They analyzed the reports, processed the data, and calculated the threat level. Their conclusion: humanity posed minimal risk. Whatever primitive weapons the humans were building, Krell shields would adapt to them within seconds, just like they had adapted to every other weapon for 3 centuries. The Krell adjusted their invasion timeline. They would finish with the outer reaches, then turn toward Earth. Human space would fall within 6 months of their arrival. It would be efficient, clean, final. They did not know that in 3 weeks everything they believed about their shields would be proven wrong. They did not know that humanity had built 10 guns that did not follow the rules, and they certainly did not know that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who does not know they are supposed to lose. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the UESS Defiant, watching Jupiter grow larger on the view screen. The massive planet dominated the view, its red storm swirling hypnotically. But Webb was not interested in the planet's beauty. He was interested in the 300 Krell warships that had just entered the outer solar system. "Status report," Webb ordered, his voice calm despite the situation. Lieutenant Sarah Park, his tactical officer, looked up from her console. Her hands shook slightly. "Krell Vanguard fleet holding position at the orbit of Saturn. 300 capital ships, estimated crew of 200,000. They are scanning the system but not advancing. They are being cautious," Commander James Wright said from the engineering station. "They know we are here. They are waiting to see what we do." Webb nodded slowly. The Defiant was not alone. Around them, 37 human warships held position near Jupiter's orbital stations. It was the entire defensive fleet of the outer solar system. Against 300 Krell ships it would normally be a massacre. But today they had something new. "Load Godstrike," Webb ordered. "Prepare firing solution on the lead Krell ship." "Godstrike loaded," Park confirmed. "Targeting the Krell flagship. Power at maximum. Ready to fire on your command." Webb looked at the tactical display. The Krell ships were holding formation, probably running scans to analyze human defenses. They had done this dozens of times before against other species. "Scan, adapt, attack." It was their standard pattern. Today, that pattern would break. "Fire Godstrike," Webb said quietly. The Defiant shuddered slightly. Deep in its core, massive capacitors discharged their energy into a magnetic rail that stretched half the length of the ship. A tungsten slug the size of a fist was accelerated to 98% light speed in less than a second. Then it was gone, vanishing into the darkness of space. On the view screen, nothing seemed to happen for a moment. Then the lead Krell ship, a massive black crystal that looked like a floating mountain, simply exploded. One instant it was there. The next it was expanding debris and superheated gas. The bridge of the Defiant was silent. Park stared at her console, her mouth open. "Direct hit," she whispered. "The flagship is destroyed." "Completely destroyed. Their shields never activated." "They did activate," Wright corrected, checking his readings. "I saw the energy spike. But the projectile was moving so fast that it hit them before the shields could analyze and adapt. The time between detection and impact was .003 seconds. Not enough time." Webb allowed himself a small smile. "One down. Load Ghost Strike. Target the ship to the flagship's right. Let us see if this one works too." The Krell fleet was no longer holding position. Ships were breaking formation, their shields flaring to full power. Weapons ports were opening. They had not expected to lose their flagship in the first second of combat. "Ghost Strike loaded," Park reported. "Firing." This time the weapon was visible as a bright streak across space. The missile flew toward the Krell ships, and as it approached shield range, the Krell responded. Energy beams lashed out, trying to destroy the incoming missile. Their shields brightened, preparing to deflect it. The missile entered shield range and immediately detonated. The explosion was small, barely noticeable against the backdrop of space. The Krell ship's shields flared but held. The ship was undamaged, for exactly 2 seconds. Then the ship exploded from the inside. A massive blast tore through its hull, ripping it apart from stem to stern. Debris fountained outward in all directions. How? Wright demanded, staring at his sensors. The missile detonated outside their shields. There is no way the explosion should have reached them. Quantum entanglement, Webb explained. The missile carried 2 warheads with entangled particles. When the first warhead detonated outside the shields, the quantum link caused the second warhead to detonate inside. The shields never even detected it because it was already inside. That is impossible, Park said. Tell that to the Krell ship, Webb replied. All ships weapons free. Hit them with everything we have got. Conventional weapons, missiles, energy beams, everything. Let us see how well their shields handle multiple threats at once. The human fleet opened fire. 37 ships unleashed every weapon they had. The space between Jupiter and Saturn lit up with energy beams, missiles, and kinetic rounds. The Krell fleet responded in kind, their own weapons tearing into the human formation. 3 human ships exploded in the first exchange. Then 4 more. The Krell were veteran warriors who had fought for 3 centuries. They knew how to kill, but they were also starting to die. A third Krell ship exploded as another Godstrike round punched through its shields at relativistic speed. A 4th ship went dark as a Ghost Strike detonated inside its engineering section. A 5th ship began spinning wildly as its maneuvering systems failed. They are adapting, Park warned. The Krell shields are starting to react faster. The last Godstrike round was partially deflected. It damaged the ship but did not destroy it. Expected, Webb said. They can adapt to anything if they see it enough times. But they cannot adapt to everything at once. Load causality cage, target that damaged ship. Sir, causality cage is still experimental. We do not know what will happen if we use it in combat. Then we will learn. Fire when ready. The causality cage launched from one of the escort ships, a frigate named Vengeance. The weapon looked like a large metal sphere covered in crystalline projectors. It flew toward the damaged Krell ship, not trying to dodge or weave. It simply moved in a straight line. Krell weapons fired at it. Energy beams struck its surface. Kinetic rounds slammed into it. But the sphere kept coming, its shields absorbing the damage. When it reached the Krell ship, the sphere stopped. Then it activated. Space itself seemed to shimmer around the Krell vessel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ship began to age. Metal corroded in seconds. Hull plating flaked away. Internal systems failed as their components degraded. The ship was experiencing years of time in just seconds, aging to scrap while the rest of the universe watched. In 15 seconds, the Krell warship became a cloud of rust and debris. Holy hell, Wright breathed. We just aged them to death. They were disconnected from normal time flow, Webb explained. From their perspective, they experienced 1,000 years in 15 seconds. Everything inside that bubble aged normally. Everything outside stayed in normal time. Result, a very old, very dead ship. The Krell fleet was now in full panic. Ships were breaking formation, trying to retreat to a safe distance. But the human fleet was not letting them go easily. More Godstrike rounds fired. More Ghost Strikes detonated. A second causality cage activated, turning another Krell ship into ancient debris. Then the Krell changed tactics. Instead of fighting, they began using the human orbital stations as cover. Krell ships positioned themselves behind civilian habitats, forcing the humans to either stop shooting or risk killing their own people. Cowards, Park spat. They are hiding behind civilians. Webb's jaw tightened. This was the Krell's backup plan. If they could not win cleanly, they would force their enemies to choose between surrender and mass casualties. It had worked against dozens of species before. All ships cease fire. Webb ordered reluctantly. We cannot risk hitting the stations. The firing stopped. The Krell ships were damaged but still functional. They had lost 47 ships out of 300. Not a decisive defeat, but more than they had lost in the past century combined. And they had achieved it by using human civilians as shields. On the main view screen, a communication request appeared. Krell did not usually talk to their victims, but apparently today was a day for firsts. Webb accepted the request. The screen filled with the image of a Krell commander. The alien was more machine than organic, with cybernetic parts covering most of its body. Its eyes glowed with cold blue light. Human ship. The Krell's voice was flat and emotionless, translated by the computer. You have developed interesting weapons. We did not expect this from such a primitive species. However, you will now stand down. We hold your civilian population hostage. If you fire again, we will destroy every station in the system. Webb stared at the alien. You are threatening to kill civilians if we do not surrender. Correct. Your choice is simple. Surrender and live as Krell subjects. Fight and watch your people die. Those are not the only options, Webb said quietly. You have no other options. Your weapons, while effective, require clear shots. We are now positioned behind your infrastructure. You cannot fire without killing your own people. Webb looked at his tactical officer. Lieutenant Park, how many Krell ships can we hit with conventional weapons without risking the stations? Maybe 30 ships, sir. The rest are too close to civilian structures. How long until we can evacuate the stations? 2 hours minimum, sir, and the Krell will not give us that time. Webb nodded slowly. He looked back at the Krell commander. You are right. We cannot fire our weapons without risking our civilians, so we will not fire. The Krell commander's expression did not change, but there was satisfaction in its voice. You are wiser than other species. You accept the inevitable. I accept that I cannot fire from here, Webb agreed, but I can still fire. He turned to his crew. Helm full burn toward the Krell position. Ramming speed. Communications, send orders to all ships. Anyone who has a clear shot, take it. Everyone else follow us in. Sir? Park looked confused. The Krell think we are trapped. They think we will not sacrifice ourselves for a tactical advantage. They are wrong. He activated the ship-wide intercom. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to do something insane. I will not order anyone to follow me who does not want to. But we have one shot to break this stalemate, and I am taking it. Anyone who wants to evacuate to the escape pods has 30 seconds. No one moved. Webb smiled slightly. I did not think so. Helm, engage. The Defiant surged forward, accelerating hard toward the Krell ships hiding behind the orbital stations. The Krell commander's expression finally changed, showing surprise. What are you doing? You will die. Maybe, Webb said. But we will take you with us. And that is acceptable. 5 other human ships broke formation and followed the Defiant. The Krell ships began firing, trying to destroy the incoming vessels before they could reach ramming range. Energy beams tore into the Defiant's shields, overloading them in seconds. Hull plating melted. The ship shuddered with each impact. But it kept coming. Distance to Krell flagship 5 kilometers, Park reported, her voice shaking. 4 kilometers, 3. Load causality cage, Webb ordered. 1 more shot. Let us make it count. Sir, if we fire that weapon at this range, we will be caught in the effect. I know, fire it anyway. The last causality cage launched from the dying Defiant. It flew the short distance to the Krell flagship and activated. Space shimmered. Time fractured. The Krell flagship aged instantly, turning to scrap in seconds. But the effect also caught the Defiant in its edge. The front third of the ship experienced accelerated time, aging and failing. Systems shut down. Hull plating crumbled. But it was enough. The flagship was dead. And with it, the coordination of the Krell fleet broke down. Ships began making individual decisions instead of following a unified strategy. Some tried to fight. Others tried to flee. The unified threat became chaos. The remaining human ships exploited the confusion. Godstrike rounds fired into the disorganized Krell formation. Ghost strikes detonated among clusters of enemy ships. Within minutes, the Krell vanguard was in full retreat. On the bridge of the dying Defiant, Webb watched them go. The ship was crippled, its front section completely destroyed, but it was still holding together. Barely. Status? He asked weakly. Smoke filled the bridge. Half the consoles were dead. Krell fleet is retreating, Park reported, blood running down her face from a cut on her forehead. They are falling back to Saturn. We won, sir. We actually won. Webb slumped in his chair. Around Jupiter, the human fleet was in ruins. Of 37 ships, only 14 were still combat capable. But the Krell had lost over 100 ships. For the first time in 300 years, the Krell Dominion had been hurt. Later, after the battle, after the rescue operations and the damage assessments, Webb sat in a medical bay getting treated for burns and broken ribs. Admiral Torres appeared on his communication screen. Good work, Captain, she said. The Galactic Council is stunned. They never thought the Krell could be beaten. We did not beat them, Webb said tiredly. We hurt them. There is a difference. And it cost us 23 ships and 12,000 lives. If that is victory, I do not want to see defeat. Victory is whatever lets us keep fighting, Torres replied. You proved that our weapons work. God Strike works. Ghost Strike works. Causality Cage works. Now we know what we are facing and we can prepare. The next battle will be easier. Will it? Webb asked. The Krell adapted to our weapons by the end of the battle. They will adapt more now that they know what to expect. We surprised them once. We will not surprise them again. Then we will use the other weapons, Torres said. Projects 4 through 9 are ready for deployment. And, Captain, the Krell just learned something important. They learned that they can be hurt. They learned that they can die. For 300 years they have believed they are invincible. Now they know better. Webb nodded slowly. What about the main fleet? This was just their vanguard. The real Krell armada is still coming. According to intelligence, the main armada has altered course. They are no longer heading directly to Earth. They are taking a longer route, gathering more ships, preparing for a real fight. We hurt them, Captain. We hurt them badly enough that they are being cautious. That buys us time. How much time? 4 months, maybe 5? Enough to build more weapons. Enough to train more crews. Enough to share our technology with other species who want to fight. Torres leaned forward. The galaxy has been losing for 300 years, Captain Webb. They forgot what winning looks like. You just reminded them. Ships from 6 different species have contacted us asking how to build God Strike launchers. The Valorians want Ghost Strike technology. Even the Centaurians, who have been neutral this whole war, are asking if they can help. All because we won one battle? No. Because you proved that the Krell can be beaten. Hope is a powerful weapon, Captain. Sometimes it is the most powerful weapon of all. Webb looked out the window of the medical bay. In the distance, repair crews were working on damaged ships. Beyond them, Jupiter continued its eternal rotation, uncaring about the battle that had been fought in its shadow. Admiral, when can we launch the next attack? When you are healed and when we have more weapons ready. But Captain, you do not have to volunteer. You have done enough. With respect, Admiral, I have not done nearly enough. The Krell are still out there. They still want to destroy us. One battle is not enough. I need to keep fighting until they are gone, or I am. Torres smiled slightly. I thought you might say that. Rest and heal, Captain. When you are ready, we will have another mission for you. There are 9 more weapons to test, and I can think of no one better to test them. The transmission ended. Webb lay back in his medical bed, staring at the ceiling. His body hurt. His ship was destroyed. Thousands of people were dead. But the Krell were retreating. For the first time in 300 years, the galaxy's greatest enemy had been forced to back down. Not destroyed, not defeated completely, but hurt, wounded, made to understand that they were not invincible. It was a start. Outside, in the cold darkness of space, the wreckage of Krell ships drifted slowly. Each piece of debris was evidence of a simple truth that the galaxy had forgotten. No shield is perfect. No enemy is unbeatable, and sometimes all it takes to win is being brave enough or crazy enough to try. 6 months after the Battle of Jupiter, the galaxy looked different. Not physically, but in the way that mattered most. Hope had returned. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo stood in a massive assembly hall on the Centaurian homeworld, watching as representatives from 23 different species examined human weapons technology. The hall was designed for beings of many different types. Atmospheric zones separated different areas, allowing methane breathers, oxygen breathers, and even vacuum-adapted species to all attend the same conference. A Valorian engineer was examining a God Strike launcher with obvious interest. The design is crude, she said through her translator, but the principle is brilliant. We have been trying to make weapons more sophisticated, more advanced. You simply made them faster. Speed is sophistication, Okonkwo replied with a slight smile. When you move at 98% light speed, you do not need complicated targeting systems or adaptive warheads. You just need to point in the right direction and pull the trigger. A Matharian scientist floated closer to examine the Ghost Strike specifications displayed on a holographic screen. The quantum entanglement is stable. We tried similar technology 200 years ago. The entangled particles always collapsed when exposed to weapons-grade energy. Because you tried to use naturally entangled particles, Okonkwo explained. We create artificial entanglement using a quantum crystalline matrix. The matrix holds the entanglement stable even through the explosion. It is not elegant, but it works. Nothing about human weapons is elegant, a Centaurian observer commented. But it sounded like a compliment rather than an insult. Your approach to warfare is like your approach to everything. Practical, direct, and completely unconcerned with established doctrine. Okonkwo looked around the room. Engineers and scientists from dozens of species were downloading specifications, taking measurements, asking detailed questions about manufacturing processes. This was the third such conference in 3 months. Humanity had opened its weapons research to anyone willing to fight the Krell. Not everyone was happy about it. Ambassador Chen arrived at Okonkwo's side, looking tired. "We have a problem. The Terran Security Council is threatening to shut down the technology sharing program." "On what grounds?" Okonkwo asked quietly. "They say we are giving away our only strategic advantage, that once other species have our weapons, they will not need us anymore. That we are making ourselves obsolete." Okonkwo shook her head. "We did not build these weapons to hoard them. We built them to win a war, and we cannot win alone." "I agree," Chen said. "But the Security Council has legitimate concerns. Some of the species asking for our technology have not always been friendly to humanity. The Rigelians fought a border war with us 20 years ago. The Draconis Collective has been trying to steal our trade routes for decades. Now we are supposed to trust them with weapons that could destroy planets? They are fighting the same enemy we are," Okonkwo pointed out. "The Krell do not care about old border disputes. They will destroy the Rigelians and the Draconis just as quickly as they would destroy us. We need allies more than we need exclusive weapons," Chen sighed. "You are right, of course. I am just tired of fighting battles on two fronts, the Krell in space and the politicians on Earth." Before Okonkwo could respond, an alarm sounded. A holographic display in the center of the room changed from showing weapon specifications to showing a star map. A red indicator was flashing near the Proxima Nebula. "What is that?" a Valorian delegate asked. "Krell Fleet Movement," a human military liaison announced. "A major force estimated at 500 ships is moving toward the Proxima system. Our forces there are requesting immediate assistance." 500 ships, Chen whispered. "That is more than twice what we faced at Jupiter." "And we have more ships than we had at Jupiter," Okonkwo said firmly. "We have the Valorian Second Fleet, the Centaurian Defense Force, and contingents from a dozen other species. All of them armed with our weapons now." She turned to the assembled delegates. "This is what we have been preparing for. The Krell are testing us again. They want to see if Jupiter was a fluke or if we can really fight them. How many of you are willing to find out?" Every delegate in the room raised their hand, tentacle, or equivalent appendage. 3 days later, a combined fleet of 147 ships from 16 different species arrived at the Proxima Nebula. The Krell fleet was already there, laying siege to a human mining colony on Proxima 3. The planet's shields were failing under constant bombardment. Captain Marcus Webb, now promoted to Commodore after the Battle of Jupiter, commanded the human contingent from his new flagship, the UESS Retribution. Around him, alien ships of every design imaginable held formation. Some were massive dreadnoughts covered in armor. Others were small, fast frigates. All of them carried at least one type of human weapon. "Status of the colony?" Webb asked. "Shields at 30%. Lieutenant Park reported from her tactical station. She had transferred to the Retribution with Webb, along with most of his surviving crew from the Defiant. "They have maybe 2 hours before the Krell breakthrough. Then we do not have time for subtlety. All ships engage at will. Use everything we have. Let us show the Krell what a united galaxy can do." The combined fleet swept into the battle. God strike rounds fired from human and Valorian ships moving at relativistic speeds. Ghost strikes launched from Centaurian vessels, their quantum warheads flickering in and out of normal space. A Matherian dreadnought deployed a gravity lance, its beam bending space itself as it cut through Krell formations. The Krell fleet responded with practiced precision. Shields flared. Weapons ports opened. Energy beams lanced through space. The battle quickly turned into chaos as hundreds of ships fired thousands of weapons. Webb watched his tactical display, noting how the different species adapted human technology to their own strengths. The Valorians, with their expertise in energy manipulation, had modified Godstrike launchers to fire plasma-coated projectiles that were even more destructive. The Centaurians, masters of quantum physics, had improved Ghost Strike's entanglement stability, making it effective at longer ranges. "The Krell are adapting," Park warned. "Their shields are starting to deflect Godstrike rounds. Not all of them, but enough to reduce damage." "Expected," Webb replied. "What about the other weapons?" "Gravity Lance is still effective. Ghost Strike is working about 60% of the time. The Krell cannot adapt to both simultaneously. A Rigelian destroyer exploded on the view screen, torn apart by Krell fire. 2 more ships, one Draconis and one human, followed seconds later. The Krell were taking losses, but they were inflicting them too. "We are trading ships almost evenly," Commander Wright reported from engineering. "At this rate, we will win the battle but lose half our fleet." "Unacceptable," Webb said. "We need to use the new weapons. Deploy phase disruptor." A Centaurian cruiser acknowledged the order and fired its phase disruptor. The beam was invisible to the naked eye, but its effects were immediately obvious. The Krell ship it struck began to shimmer. Then slowly it started to fall apart. Not exploding, not burning, just coming undone as its molecular bonds forgot how to hold together. Within 30 seconds, the ship was a cloud of individual atoms drifting harmlessly in space. "By the stars," a Valorian captain breathed over the communication channel. "That is horrifying." "That is war," Webb replied. "All ships with phase disruptors fire at will." 3 more Centaurian ships and 2 Valorian ships fired their phase disruptors. 5 more Krell ships dissolved into atomic clouds. The Krell fleet began to pull back, trying to avoid the new weapon. But Webb was not done. "Deploy dimensional anchor." A human frigate launched the experimental weapon. It looked like a small satellite, barely 10 meters across. It flew into the middle of the Krell formation and activated. Suddenly, a dozen Krell ships began moving in impossible directions. One ship accelerated straight up relative to the galactic plane, its engines screaming as they fought against forces that should not exist. Another ship spun wildly, its hull tearing apart from the stress. A third ship seemed to fold in on itself, crushed by its own momentum in a direction that physics said did not exist. "The dimensional anchor locks space in place relative to absolute space," Webb explained over the fleet channel. "But space itself is moving due to the expansion of the universe. The ships are trying to maintain their position in normal space while being locked in absolute space. The result is catastrophic structural failure." "This is madness," a Draconis commander said. "These weapons break every rule of engagement." "The Krell broke those rules first when they started destroying planets," Webb replied coldly. "We are just returning the favor. Continue the attack." The battle raged for another 2 hours. The Krell fought with the desperation of beings who realized they were no longer invincible. They adapted tactics constantly, trying to find ways to counter the flood of new weapons. But every time they adapted to one weapon, another would hit them from a different angle. A God Strike round would force them to strengthen their shields. Then a Ghost Strike would detonate inside those shields, bypassing them entirely. While they were recovering, a gravity lance would crush their ship's structure. If they tried to spread their formation to avoid area weapons, phase disruptors would pick them off one by one. If they clustered for mutual defense, dimensional anchors would trap whole groups. Finally, the Krell fleet broke. Not retreating in order, but scattering in panic. Individual ships fled in different directions, abandoning any pretense of formation or coordination. The combined fleet pursued, destroying fleeing ships until Webb ordered them to stop. "Let them go," he said. "Let them spread the word. Let every Krell in the galaxy know that they can be beaten." As the battle ended, damage reports came in. The combined fleet had lost 42 ships. 17 human vessels, 9 Valorian, 8 Centaurian, and 8 from various other species. Over 6,000 sentient beings dead, but the Krell had lost over 200 ships. And they had run away. In the days following the battle, something changed across the galaxy. More species joined the anti-Krell coalition. Weapons development accelerated as different civilizations combined their expertise with human innovation. The Aquarians, a species that lived in liquid environments, developed an underwater version of God Strike that could be fired from ocean worlds. The Silicates, beings made of living crystal, created a weapon that used resonance frequencies to shatter Krell hull plating. The tide was turning, but there was a cost. Dr. Okonkwo sat in her lab on Luna Station, reading reports from the field. The weapons were working better than expected. They were also causing more destruction than anticipated. Phase disruptors left clouds of radioactive particles that would contaminate space for centuries. Dimensional anchors sometimes created small gravitational anomalies that persisted after the battle ended. Causality cages had unpredictable effects on local space-time. "We are poisoning the galaxy," she said quietly to Ambassador Chen, who had come to visit. Chen nodded slowly. "I know, but what choice do we have? If we do not use these weapons, the Krell will conquer us. If we do use them, we win but leave scars that will take centuries to heal. There has to be a better way. If you find one, tell me, Chen replied. But until then, we use what works. The galaxy has been losing this war for 300 years. We are finally winning. I will accept some collateral damage if it means we survive. Okonkwo looked at the data again.
Casualty numbers.
Radiation levels. Damaged star systems. The cost of victory was being paid in blood and environmental destruction. What about Project 10? She asked. The quantum virus. If we could deploy it, we could end the war without further battles. The ethics committee rejected it, Chen said. They said forcibly changing an entire species' consciousness is genocide, even if we do not kill anyone. It is too similar to what the Krell have been doing to conquered species, forcing them into submission. So we fight conventional battles with unconventional weapons until one side is too exhausted to continue. Unless you have a better idea. Okonkwo did not have a better idea. None of them did. They were making up the rules as they went, trying to balance survival with morality, victory with ethics. It was messy and complicated and nothing like the clean scenarios in strategic simulations. A priority message arrived on her terminal. It was from military intelligence. The Krell main armada has been spotted, she read aloud. 3,000 ships heading for the core worlds. Estimated arrival in 6 weeks. They are not targeting humanity anymore. They are targeting the heart of galactic civilization. If the core worlds fall, the rest of the galaxy falls with them. Chen closed his eyes. 3,000 ships. We barely survived against 500. We do not have enough weapons to fight that many. Then we build more, Okonkwo said firmly. We have 6 weeks. We can produce maybe 500 more weapons if we work around the clock. Every shipyard in human space is already building Godstrike launchers. We share the designs with every species willing to build them. It will not be enough, but it might be enough to hurt them. And if it is not enough, Okonkwo looked at the data for Project 10, the quantum virus. The weapon they had agreed not to use because it was too cruel, too permanent, too much like the enemy they were fighting. Then we use every weapon we have, she said quietly. Every single one. Because if the core worlds fall, there is no second chance. The galaxy either stands together now or it falls apart forever. Chen nodded slowly. I will inform the council. Prepare all weapons for deployment, including Project 10. We will decide which ones to use when we see the battlefield. But Sarah, understand this. If we use that quantum virus, we are not the heroes anymore. We become something else. Something darker. I know, Okonkwo said, but being a hero is a luxury we cannot afford right now. Right now, we just need to survive. As Chen left, Okonkwo looked at the star map on her screen. The Krell Armada was coming. 3,000 ships filled with warriors who had never known defeat until they met humanity. Now they knew fear, and that made them more dangerous than ever. Somewhere in the darkness of space, the largest fleet in galactic history was moving toward the core worlds. It would be the final battle, the moment that decided whether the galaxy would survive or fall into darkness. And humanity, the youngest species in the galaxy, the species that everyone had dismissed as primitive and weak, would be leading the defense. Because they had done what no one else could do. They had built weapons that worked. 10 weapons that the galaxy said could not exist. 10 weapons that were about to face their greatest test. The core worlds hung in space like jewels, 5 planets orbiting a triple star system at the heart of galactic civilization. For 10,000 years, these worlds had been the center of art, science, and culture for hundreds of species. Libraries that held the knowledge of millennia. Museums that preserved the history of civilizations long dead. Universities where the brightest minds in the galaxy came to learn. Now, they were about to become a battlefield. Commodore Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history take formation around the core worlds. 347 ships from 29 different species. It was everything the galaxy could spare. Every ship that could reach the core worlds in time. Against 3,000 Krell warships. It would not be enough. Fleet status, Webb ordered. His voice calm despite the impossible odds. All ships report ready, Lieutenant Park replied. We have 87 ships equipped with Godstrike launchers, 52 with Ghost Strike missiles, 31 with gravity lances, 24 with phase disruptors, and 18 with causality cages. The remaining ships are armed with conventional weapons and will provide support fire. And Project 10? Park hesitated. Loaded and ready on the Vengeance. Dr. Okonkwo is standing by to deploy it on your command. Webb nodded slowly. The quantum virus. The weapon they had all agreed was too cruel to use, too permanent, too much like the enemy they fought. But if they lost this battle, cruelty would not matter. Nothing would matter. Krell fleet entering sensor range, Commander Wright announced. Sensors confirm 3,000 capital ships. They are moving in standard attack formation. On the view screen, the Krell armada appeared. It looked like a black cloud. Thousands of crystalline ships blotting out the stars. They moved with perfect coordination. Every ship in exactly the right position. Every movement synchronized with inhuman precision. They are beautiful in a terrible way, Webb said quietly. Like a swarm of locusts. Perfect. Efficient. Unstoppable. We stopped them before, Park said. We hurt them before, Webb corrected. This time they are not underestimating us. This time they know what we can do, and they came anyway with 10 times the force. That tells me they think they can win. Can they? Wright asked. Webb did not answer immediately. He looked at the tactical display, running calculations in his head. 3,000 ships against 300. Even with superior weapons, the math was brutal. Maybe, he finally said. But we are going to make them work for it. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. This is Commodore Webb to all ships. You know the situation. You know the odds. I am not going to lie to you and say this will be easy. It will not be. Many of us will not survive the next few hours. But I want you to remember something. 300 years ago, the Krell conquered their first species. For 3 centuries, they have been unstoppable. 62 civilizations have fallen to them. Trillions of beings have died or been enslaved. And in all that time, no one ever beat them. Until we did. He paused, letting his words sink in. We beat them at Jupiter. We beat them at Proxima. We have shown the galaxy that the Krell are not invincible. Today we finish what we started. Today we show them that their empire ends here. Not because we have more ships. Not because we have better technology. But because we refuse to surrender. We refuse to give up. We refuse to let them win. Every species in this fleet is here because they chose to fight rather than kneel. That choice matters. That choice changes everything. Another pause. In a few minutes we will engage the enemy. Use every weapon you have. Fight with everything you have got. Make every shot count. And remember, we are not just fighting for the core worlds. We are fighting for every species the Krell have destroyed. We are fighting for everyone who never got a chance to fight back. We are fighting for the right of every sentient being in this galaxy to live free. That is worth dying for. That is worth everything. He closed the channel and looked at his crew. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes. But they were also determined. All weapons armed and ready, Park reported. The Krell fleet is entering effective range. They are spreading their formation, probably expecting our relativistic weapons. Give them what they expect, Webb said. All Godstrike launchers fire. 87 ships fired simultaneously. 87 tungsten slugs accelerated to near light speed, crossing the distance between the fleets in seconds. The Krell fleet responded instantly. Their shields flared to maximum power, and their formation shifted. 63 Godstrike rounds found their targets. 63 Krell ships exploded or were crippled, but 24 rounds were deflected or absorbed by shields that had learned from previous battles. They adapted, Wright said grimly. Their shields are stronger than before. Then we adapt too, Webb replied. All Ghost Strike missiles fire. All gravity lances fire. All phase disruptors fire. Hit them with everything at once. The combined fleet unleashed a storm of exotic weapons. Ghost Strike missiles flickered in and out of quantum states, detonating inside Krell shields. Gravity lances bent space into crushing forces. Phase disruptors turned matter into atomic clouds. Causality cages aged ships to dust in seconds. The Krell fleet staggered under the assault. Hundreds of ships exploded. Thousands more were damaged. But they kept coming. For every Krell ship destroyed, 10 more pressed forward. Their return fire was devastating. Energy beams tore through the Allied fleet, destroying ships wholesale. A Valorian dreadnought exploded in a ball of plasma. 2 Centaurian cruisers collided as their navigation systems were destroyed by Krell fire. A human destroyer simply vanished as a Krell weapon erased it from existence. We are losing ships faster than we are destroying theirs. Park reported, her voice strained. At this rate, we will be overrun in 30 minutes. Webb looked at the tactical display. She was right. They were hurting the Krell badly, destroying ships at a rate that would have won any conventional battle. But there were simply too many enemies. The Krell could afford to lose 1,000 ships and still have 2,000 left. The Allied fleet could not afford to lose even 100. Deploy all remaining causality cages, Webb ordered. Target their command ships. If we can disrupt their coordination, we might be able to create chaos. 10 causality cages launched, flying toward the center of the Krell formation, where their command vessels directed the battle. The Krell tried to shoot them down, but the cages were heavily shielded. 8 of them reached their targets and activated. Space shimmered as time became unstable. 8 Krell command ships aged instantly, their systems failing as centuries passed in seconds. The effect spread outward, catching nearby ships in the temporal distortion. Dozens of ships were aged to scrap. The Krell formation wavered as command signals were disrupted. Ships began making individual decisions instead of following a unified plan. Some continued to attack. Others tried to regroup. A few even fired on their own allies by mistake. It is working, Wright said excitedly. We are breaking their coordination. But the celebration was premature. The Krell adapted quickly, establishing new command protocols and restoring order to their formation. Within minutes, they were attacking with renewed focus, concentrating their fire on the ships that had deployed the causality cages. The Vengeance, the ship carrying Project 10, took 3 direct hits. Its shields collapsed. Its hull breached in a dozen places. Vengeance is critical, Park shouted. They are evacuating. Webb watched as escape pods launched from the dying ship. Dr. Okonkwo was on that ship. The quantum virus was on that ship. If it was destroyed, their last desperate weapon would be lost. All ships cover the Vengeance, Webb ordered. Do not let them finish her. 6 human ships moved to shield the crippled vessel. Taking fire meant for it. They died buying seconds, their sacrifice allowing more escape pods to launch. But the Krell were relentless. A massive energy beam punched through the last defending ship and struck the Vengeance directly. The ship exploded, but not before one final escape pod launched. Webb watched it arc away from the destruction, carrying Dr. Okonkwo and the quantum virus to safety. Pick up that pod, Webb ordered. Get Dr. Okonkwo and the virus aboard the Retribution. Sir, we are in the middle of a battle, Park objected. I do not care. That pod is more important than this ship. Retrieve it now. The Retribution maneuvered through the chaos of battle, exposing itself to enemy fire to reach the escape pod. Krell weapons struck the ship's shields, draining them. A beam punched through and carved a path through the starboard hull, killing 30 crew members instantly, but they got the pod. Dr. Okonkwo stumbled onto the bridge, her clothes scorched and her face covered in soot. She carried a metal case that held the quantum virus. Status? She asked immediately. We are losing, Webb said bluntly. We have destroyed over 800 Krell ships, but they still have over 2,000. We have less than 200 ships left. At current rates, we will be wiped out in 10 minutes. Okonkwo looked at the case in her hands. Then it is time. Are you certain? Webb asked. Once we use this, there is no going back. We will have changed an entire species against their will. That makes us no better than them? No, Okonkwo said firmly. It makes us survivors. The Krell have destroyed 62 civilizations. They have killed trillions. They will not stop until every free species in the galaxy is either dead or enslaved. I did not want to use this weapon, but I want to see my species extinct even less. She opened the case. Inside was a single missile, small and unremarkable looking. But inside its warhead was a computer virus more sophisticated than anything ever created. A virus that could travel along quantum entanglement links. A virus that would break the Krell hive mind and force each individual into separate consciousness. How long until it spreads through their entire fleet? Webb asked. Once we infect one ship, the virus will spread to all connected ships within seconds. Every Krell vessel uses quantum communication. They are all linked. That is their strength and their weakness. One infection reaches everyone, and what happens to them? They become individuals, separate minds instead of one unified consciousness. They will still have their memories and knowledge, but they will have to make their own decisions. No more hive mind. No more perfect coordination. They will be confused, scared and alone in their own heads for the first time in their lives. Webb looked at the tactical display. Another 3 Allied ships exploded. The Krell were closing in, about to overrun the defensive line. "Do it," he said. "Launch the virus." Okonkwo loaded the missile into a launch tube herself. Her hands shook slightly as she entered the arming codes. This was it. The moment that would define humanity's place in galactic history. They would either be remembered as the species that saved the galaxy, or as the species that committed the greatest act of forced evolution ever recorded. "Missile loaded," she said quietly, targeting the nearest Krell command ship. "Launching in 3, 2, 1, launch." The missile flew from the Retribution, accelerating toward the Krell fleet. The Krell did not see it as a major threat. It was just one more missile among thousands. Their point defense systems tracked it but prioritized other, larger threats. The missile reached a Krell command ship and impacted against its hull. The small explosive charge inside detonated, not to destroy, but to inject the virus into the ship's computer systems. For a moment nothing happened. Then everything changed. The Krell command ship stopped firing. It stopped moving. It just hung in space, motionless. Then another ship stopped. Then another. Then 10 more. Then 100. Then 1,000. In less than 30 seconds, the entire Krell fleet was dead in space. "What is happening?" Park asked, staring at her sensors. "They are not destroyed, they are just not doing anything." "The virus is spreading," Okonkwo explained, watching her own readouts. "Every ship is connected by quantum links. The virus is traveling along those links, infecting every computer system in the fleet simultaneously. But it is not attacking their ship systems. It is attacking their neural connections. It is breaking the hive mind." On the view screen, they could see escape pods beginning to launch from Krell ships. Dozens at first, then hundreds, then thousands. Individual Krell were abandoning their vessels, fleeing into space in panic. "They are experiencing individual consciousness for the first time," Okonkwo said softly. "Imagine spending your entire life as part of a collective mind, always connected to thousands of others, never alone. And then suddenly you are alone. Just you. Just your own thoughts. No guidance from the collective. No certainty. No purpose beyond what you decide for yourself. It must be terrifying." Webb watched the Krell fleet drift helplessly. Ships collided with each other as their navigation systems went unattended. Some ships fired randomly, their crews apparently trying to fight off something they could not see. Escape pods continued to launch by the thousands. "Cease fire," Webb ordered. "All ships, hold your fire." "Sir?" Park looked confused. "They are defenseless. We could destroy them easily." "We could," Webb agreed. "But we do not need to. The war is over." He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, cease fire immediately. The Krell are no longer a threat. I repeat, cease fire. The battle is over. We won." Slowly, the Allied fleet stopped shooting. Ships held their positions, weapons still charged, ready to resume if necessary. But the Krell did not attack. They just drifted, their crews struggling with the sudden burden of independent thought. "We should finish them," a Rigelian captain said over the fleet channel. "They destroyed my colony world. They killed my family. They deserve to die." "They probably do," Webb replied. "But we are not executioners. We fought to survive, not to commit genocide. The Krell Empire is broken. Their hive mind is destroyed. They are no longer a unified threat. What they become now is up to them." Ambassador Chen appeared on the communication screen. He was calling from one of the core worlds below. "Commodore, Webb, we are receiving thousands of distress calls from Krell escape pods. They are asking for help. They do not seem to understand what happened to them." "Because they do not," Okonkwo said. "They have never been individuals before. They do not know how to function alone. Right now, every Krell in that fleet is experiencing what we would call an existential crisis. They do not know who they are without the collective." "What should we do with them?" Chen asked. Webb thought for a long moment. "We help them. We bring them to safe locations. We explain what happened. We give them a chance to learn how to be individuals, and then we let them decide what kind of society they want to build." "You want to help them?" the Rigelian captain demanded. "After everything they did?" "I want to prove that we are better than them," Webb replied. The Krell conquered because they thought collective unity was the only way to survive. They thought individual consciousness made species weak. Let us prove them wrong. Let us show them that individuals working together by choice are stronger than collectives forced together by neural links. Over the next several hours, the Allied fleet worked to secure the battlefield. Krell escape pods were collected and brought to holding areas on the core worlds. Krell ships that were still functional were boarded and shut down. Engineers examined the virus's effects, confirming that it was permanent. The quantum links that had connected all Krell minds were broken beyond repair. Dr. Okonkwo stood in a holding area, watching through a window as Krell individuals sat in confusion. They looked lost. Some were trying to communicate with each other, but they did not seem to know how to have conversations. They had always known each other's thoughts instantly. Now they had to use words. A young Krell, its cybernetic body smaller than most, approached the window and looked at Okonkwo. Its glowing eyes showed something that had never been in a Krell's eyes before. Fear. Why? The Krell asked through a translator. Its voice was hesitant, uncertain. Why did you do this to us? Okonkwo met its gaze. Because you gave us no choice. You were destroying the galaxy. You had to be stopped. But you did not kill us. You changed us. Made us. Separate. Alone. Yes. Why not just destroy us? It would have been easier. Okonkwo was quiet for a moment. Because we wanted to prove something. We wanted to prove that victory does not require annihilation. The Krell Empire destroyed every species it conquered. You thought that was strength. We think that is weakness. True strength is knowing when to stop fighting. True strength is helping your enemy become something better instead of destroying them completely. The young Krell looked at its hands, as if seeing them for the first time. I do not know who I am. I do not know what I am supposed to do. The collective always told us now there is nothing. Just silence in my head. Just me. That is called freedom, Okonkwo said gently. It is terrifying at first. But it is also the most precious thing in the universe. You get to decide who you are now. You get to choose your own path. No one can force you to be anything you do not want to be. What if I make the wrong choice? Then you make another choice. That is what individuals do. We make mistakes, we learn, we try again. It is messy and complicated and often painful, but it is ours. Your life belongs to you now, not to the collective. The young Krell was silent for a long time. Then it asked, what will happen to us now? That depends on you, Okonkwo replied. The Galactic Council is meeting to discuss it. Some species want you imprisoned for your crimes. Others want you scattered across the galaxy, where you cannot reorganize. But I am arguing for something different. I am arguing that you should be given a chance to build a new society. A society of individuals who choose to cooperate instead of being forced to. Why would you argue for that? We tried to destroy you. Because I believe in second chances, and because the universe has seen enough destruction, it is time for something new. Over the following weeks, the galaxy changed in ways no one had predicted. The Krell Empire collapsed as individual Krell struggled to adapt to consciousness. Some managed well, quickly learning how to make decisions and form relationships. Others struggled, overwhelmed by the freedom they had never asked for. The Galactic Council debated for days about what to do with the former Krell. Finally, they reached a compromise. The Krell would be given a single world, a planet where they could build a new society under supervision. They would be monitored for a generation to ensure they did not try to rebuild their empire, but they would be given a chance. Not all species agreed with this decision. The Valorians in particular wanted harsher punishment. But Ambassador Chen made a compelling argument. If we punish the Krell too harshly, we become the oppressors, he said to the council. We fought this war to preserve freedom, not to impose our will on others. The Krell were dangerous because they forced their way of life on everyone they met. If we do the same to them even as punishment, we have learned nothing from this war. The motion passed by a narrow margin. The Krell would have their chance. 6 months after the Battle of the Core Worlds, Commodore Webb stood on the observation deck of a space station orbiting the new Krell homeworld. Below, he could see the beginnings of a new society. The Krell were building settlements, farms, schools. They were learning to be individuals. It was slow and difficult, but they were trying. Dr. Okonkwo joined him at the window. The council approved my request. We are decommissioning all 10 weapons. They will be placed in a memorial museum on Earth. All of them? Webb asked. Even Godstrike? That one seems relatively harmless. All of them, Okonkwo confirmed. The council decided that weapons designed specifically to break an unbreakable enemy are too dangerous to keep active. They worked too well. They were too devastating. We proved we could build them. Now we need to prove we are wise enough not to use them. What if another enemy arises? Another threat like the Krell? Then we will deal with it when it happens. But hopefully we will remember the lessons of this war. We will remember that victory is not just about destroying your enemy. It is about making sure the reasons for war do not continue after the fighting stops. Webb nodded slowly. Below, a group of young Krell were playing some kind of game. It was chaotic and disorganized, not at all like the perfect coordination of the old hive mind. But they were laughing. Individual laughter, not a collective response. Do you think we did the right thing? Webb asked. Using the virus instead of just destroying them? Okonkwo considered the question carefully. I think we did the only thing we could do that would not make us monsters. Genocide is easy. It is clean. It is final. But it is also the path that leads to becoming the next Krell. We chose a harder path. We chose to change our enemy instead of destroying them. History will decide if that was wise. And the other weapons? The ones that tear holes in space-time and dissolve matter at the atomic level? Do you regret building those? I regret that we had to, Okonkwo replied. But I do not regret that we did. The galaxy said no gun could break the Krell. We proved them wrong. We built 10 guns that worked. We saved the galaxy. The cost was high and the weapons were terrible, but they did what needed to be done. Webb smiled slightly. The Memorial Museum is inscribed now. I saw the design. It says, built not because we loved war, but because we refused to lose. May they never be needed again. A good sentiment, Okonkwo agreed. Let us hope we can live up to it. They stood together in silence, watching the Krell below learn how to be free. The war was over. The weapons were being retired. The galaxy could begin to heal. In time, the Krell would become full members of the Galactic Council, contributing their unique perspectives as individuals rather than as a collective. They would never forget what they had been, but they would choose to become something different. And humanity, the young species that everyone had dismissed as primitive, would be remembered as the species that changed everything, not by having the best technology, not by being the strongest warriors, but by refusing to accept that any enemy was truly unbeatable. They had faced an impossible challenge and met it with impossible solutions. They had built weapons that defied logic and broke the rules of conventional warfare. And when victory came, they had shown mercy instead of revenge. The galaxy had said no gun could break the Krell. Humanity built 10 that worked. But more importantly, they proved that winning a war and building a lasting peace required different kinds of strength. One required weapons, the other required wisdom. And in the end, wisdom was the most powerful weapon of all.
The war had gone on for too long. 12 years of fighting against the Dominion had pushed humanity to the edge. Earth's colonies fell one by one as the alien fleet moved through space like a plague of locusts. Hope was a luxury few could afford anymore. Commander Jack Reynolds knew this better than most. He stood at the edge of a cliff on Titan IX, a small mining colony at the outer rim of human space. The purple sky reflected in his tired eyes as he watched the last transport ship of the day disappear into the clouds. Jack had been here for 3 years now, ever since the military had kicked him out. Dishonorable discharge was the official term they used. Dangerous innovations was what they really meant. His small cabin sat alone on the hilltop, away from the miners and their families. Just how he liked it. The only company he kept was the bottle of whiskey on his table and the memories he couldn't shake. Jack ran a hand through his graying hair and turned to go inside when he noticed a ship breaking through the clouds. It wasn't a mining vessel. Well, that's not good, he muttered to himself. The sleek military transport landed about 50 meters from his cabin. Jack didn't reach for a weapon. If they wanted him dead, he would be all ready. The ship's door opened, and out stepped a figure Jack hadn't seen in years. Admiral Miller, with his perfect uniform and stern face, looked out of place on the dusty planet. "Reynolds," Miller called out, not bothering with formalities. "You look terrible." "That's funny," Jack replied, "because you look exactly the same. Still the perfect soldier." Miller didn't smile. "May I come in?" Jack shrugged and led the way into his simple cabin. He didn't offer the Admiral a drink or a seat. "I'll get straight to the point," Miller said, standing stiffly in the middle of the room. "We're losing the war. Tell me something I don't know." "The Dominion has new ships. Faster, stronger. They've pushed us back to the inner colonies. Mars fell last month." Jack felt a twist in his gut. Mars was where he had grown up. "So what? You came all this way to give me bad news. I get enough of that from the mining reports." Miller took a deep breath. "I'm here to offer you a command." Jack laughed, a sharp and bitter sound. "You kicked me out, remember? Said my ideas would get people killed. Said I was unstable. Things have changed." "Have they?" Jack asked. "Or are you just desperate?" Miller pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. A hologram appeared between them, showing a ship unlike any in the fleet. Jack's heart skipped a beat. He knew that ship. He had designed it. "The CSS Phoenix," Jack whispered. "Yes," Miller confirmed. "Your ship." "That's impossible. The Phoenix was scrapped. I saw the reports." Miller's face remained unreadable. "Officially, yes. The Phoenix doesn't exist. It never did." Jack stared at the hologram, at the sleek lines and unique configuration. It was exactly as he had designed it, but with some modifications he didn't recognize. Someone finished it, Jack realized, against orders. "We don't know who," Miller admitted. 3 months ago, it just appeared in a military dock. Fully built, systems online. The records showed nothing. It's like a ghost. Jack circled the hologram, studying the ship from all angles. The Phoenix had been his life's work, a revolutionary design with advanced stealth technology and adaptive systems that could learn from each engagement. The military had shut it down, calling it too unpredictable, too dangerous. "You want me to command a ghost ship," Jack said flatly. "I want you to command your ship," Miller corrected. "No one understands it like you do." Jack turned away, looking out the small window at the purple sky. "Why would I help you? You took everything from me. Because if we lose this war, there won't be anything left for any of us." Miller's voice softened slightly. "And because I know you, Reynolds. You didn't design the Phoenix to sit in a scrapyard." Jack was quiet for a long moment. The Phoenix had been more than a project to him. It represented everything he believed about warfare, that adaptability would always triumph over brute force, that sometimes you had to break the rules to survive. "Who else knows about this?" Jack finally asked. "Just a handful of top brass. Officially, the Phoenix doesn't exist, and neither will your mission. If you're caught, we'll deny everything." Jack laughed again, but this time without the bitterness. "So I'm expendable." "We're all expendable in this war," Miller replied. "But with the Phoenix, you might actually make a difference." Jack stared at the hologram for another long moment. Then he looked at the small cabin that had been his prison for 3 years. What did he have to lose? "I'll need to pick my own crew," he said. Miller nodded, within reason. "No," Jack shook his head firmly. "My ship, my crew. No compromises." The Admiral and the disgraced commander locked eyes in a silent battle of wills. Finally, Miller nodded again. "Fine. But I want results, Reynolds." "You'll get them." Jack looked back at the hologram, a spark returning to his eyes that had been missing for years. "When do we leave?" "Now," Miller said. "Pack whatever you need. The Phoenix is waiting in orbit." As Jack gathered his few belongings, a thought struck him. "You said you don't know who finished building it." Miller shook his head. "That's the biggest mystery. The security systems were bypassed by someone with intimate knowledge of our protocols. The work was completed in secret, right under our noses. Whoever did it disappeared without a trace." Jack shouldered his bag, a slight smile on his face. "Then I guess that's the first mystery we need to solve. The trip to orbit was quick and silent. Jack watched as Titan 9 grew smaller beneath them, the purple clouds swallowing the mining colony. He wasn't sad to leave it behind. When they docked with the larger ship that would take them to the Phoenix's hidden location, Jack felt a strange sensation in his chest. Anticipation, maybe. Or perhaps it was something else. A feeling that somehow, in some way he couldn't understand yet, he was going home. 3 days later, Jack stood in a secret docking bay looking up at the CSS Phoenix. In person, it was even more impressive than the hologram had suggested. Sleek black hull plating that seemed to drink in the light. Unconventional engine configuration. Weapon systems unlike anything in the fleet. "She's beautiful," he whispered. Miller handed him a command chip. "She's yours, Reynolds. Try not to start another war." Jack took the chip, rolling it between his fingers. No promises. As Miller left, Jack approached the ship alone. The boarding ramp lowered automatically as he neared, as if the Phoenix somehow recognized him. Inside, the ship was quiet, humming with potential energy. The command deck was exactly as he had designed it, with a few additions he didn't recognize. He placed his hand on the captain's chair, feeling the cool material under his palm. "Hello, old friend," he said softly. "Let's see what you can do." The ship's systems came to life around him, displays lighting up one by one. And for just a moment, Jack could have sworn he heard a voice, soft and familiar, welcoming him aboard. But that was impossible. No one else was on the ship. Was there? "This isn't going to work with the standard crew assignments," Jack said, tossing the personnel files back onto Admiral Miller's desk. They were meeting in a small, secure room on Outpost 7, far from the prying eyes of military command. Miller frowned. "These are our best available officers. Best at following orders, maybe," Jack replied. "The Phoenix needs people who think differently, who can adapt. Your best officers would try to run her like a normal ship, and she's anything but normal." "She?" Miller raised an eyebrow. "It's a ship, Reynolds." Jack ignored the comment. "I need my own people." "Your own people are either dead or criminals," Miller said harshly. Jack's eyes hardened. "Then I guess I'll be recruiting criminals." 3 days later, Jack walked through the detention level of Lunar Base Alpha. The guard beside him looked nervous. "Are you sure about this, Commander? Reed has been in solitary for 6 months for assaulting a superior officer." Jack smiled slightly. "Sounds like my kind of soldier." The cell door opened to reveal a woman sitting cross-legged on the floor. Lieutenant Alex Reed had short red hair and eyes that seemed to calculate a dozen ways to take you down before you even spoke. She didn't stand when they entered. "Lieutenant Reed," Jack said. "I'm Commander Reynolds." "I know who you are," she replied, voice calm, but with an edge. "You're the guy who designed weapons systems that scared our own military. Then they kick you out." That's a simplified version, but essentially correct. Jack nodded to the guard to leave them alone. Once the door closed, he continued, "I'm putting together a crew for a special mission. Interested in getting out of this cell." Reed finally looked up at him properly. "Depends. What kind of mission?" "The kind that doesn't officially exist. On a ship that doesn't officially exist." A small smile appeared on Reed's face. "Now that does sound interesting." By the end of the week, Jack had gathered 3 more crew members. Dr. Morgan Gray was found working in a remote research facility after being banished from the main fleet for her controversial theories about human-machine integration. She was tall and thin, with silver streaks in her dark hair despite being only in her 30s. "Your papers on cybernetic consciousness were fascinating," Jack told her when they met. Morgan's eyes lit up. "You've read my work." "The military tried to bury it." "I make it a point to read what the military tries to bury," Jack replied. "It's usually the most important stuff." Engineer Thomas "Tom" Wright was harder to track down. He'd been court-martialed for borrowing military equipment to modify his own designs. Jack finally found him working under a false name at a shipyard on Europa. "They say you can fix anything," Jack said, watching the stocky man with grease-stained hands work on an engine. Tom didn't look up. They say a lot of things about me. Most of them aren't flattering. I don't need flattering. I need someone who can think on their feet when systems start failing in the middle of a battle. Tom finally looked up, curiosity in his eyes. What kind of systems? The kind no one has ever seen before. The final member of Jack's core team was Navigator Ellie Parker. She had an almost supernatural ability to plot courses through space, seeing patterns in gravity fields and solar winds that computers missed. The military had deemed her psychologically unstable after she'd insisted she could feel spatial anomalies before instruments detected them. Jack found her teaching at a civilian flight school on Earth. "They said you were crazy," he said after watching her demonstration in a simulator. Ellie, a small woman with intense dark eyes, shrugged. "They weren't wrong. I am crazy, but I'm also the best navigator you'll ever meet." "Crazy I can work with," Jack replied. "It's stupidity I can't stand." When the five of them finally assembled on the Phoenix, the ship seemed to hum with anticipation. Jack gave them a tour, explaining the unique systems as best he could, though some modifications remained a mystery even to him. "The stealth system doesn't just mask our signature," he explained on the bridge. "It can create false readings, making us appear to be somewhere we're not." "That's supposed to be theoretical," Morgan said, examining the controls. "No one's been able to create a working prototype." "Someone did," Jack replied. "And then they built it into this ship." Tom ran his hand along the console, his expert touch feeling the quality of the work. "This isn't standard military construction. Too elegant. Too intuitive." They spent the next 3 days learning the ship's systems, discovering capabilities that weren't in any blueprint. The Phoenix responded to their commands with an uncanny quickness, almost anticipating what they needed. On the fourth night, Jack couldn't sleep. He wandered to the bridge, expecting to find it empty. Instead, he saw Ellie sitting in the navigator's chair, her eyes closed, hands hovering over the controls without touching them. "Parker, what are you doing?" Her eyes opened slowly. "She was talking to me." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "Who was?" "The ship." Ellie said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. "She was showing me pathways through space I've never seen before. Routes that shouldn't be possible." Before Jack could respond, an alert sounded. A message from Admiral Miller appeared on the main screen. "Emergency. Colony under ATTCK. Kugu ordinati is AT. No other vessels in range. Wake the others," Jack ordered, moving to the captain's chair. "Looks like we're about to find out what this ship can really do." As the crew rushed to their stations, Jack placed his hand on the control panel. For a moment, he could have sworn it warmed beneath his touch, like a handshake, like a promise. "Time to show them what you can do," he whispered. The Phoenix powered up, systems coming online faster than should have been possible. The engines hummed with a sound unlike any ship Jack had ever commanded. "Course plotted," Ellie announced, her fingers dancing across her console. "It's strange. The ship is suggesting a route through the Kelvin Nebula. That's supposed to be impassable." "Can we make it?" Jack asked. Ellie smiled, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "With this ship, I think we can do anything." "Then let's go save some colonists," Jack ordered, and introduced the Dominion to the ghost ship that shouldn't exist. The Phoenix lifted from its hidden dock, its black hull seeming to absorb the starlight around it. As they accelerated toward the jump point, Jack felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. Behind him, Morgan was studying a readout with a puzzled expression. "Commander," she said quietly, "the ship's processing power just tripled, but I didn't activate any auxiliary systems. Is it a malfunction?" Jack asked. Morgan shook her head slowly. "No, it's more like the ship knew we needed more power and provided it. On its own." The crew exchanged glances, a mixture of excitement and unease passing between them. "Well," Jack said after a moment. I did tell Miller I wanted a crew that could adapt. Looks like the ship fits right in. As they jumped to faster-than-light speed, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't just flying the Phoenix. They were waking it up. The colony of New Haven was burning. Dominion warships circled the small settlement like sharks, their weapons tearing through buildings and defense systems alike. From the bridge of the Phoenix, Jack and his crew watched the devastation through their long-range sensors. 5 Dominion cruisers, Alex reported from the weapons station, plus about a dozen fighter craft. The colony's defenses are almost gone. Jack studied the tactical display. Normal protocol would be to wait for backup. By then, there won't be anyone left to save, Morgan said quietly. Jack nodded. Exactly. So we're going to try something that isn't in any manual. He turned to Ellie at the navigation console. That impossible route you mentioned. Can you get us behind that moon without the Dominion seeing us? Ellie's fingers danced across her controls. The ship's already plotting the course. It's like she knew what you were going to ask. Tom, Jack called to his engineer. I need everything you can give me on the stealth systems. Tom grinned. Actually, I found something interesting. The stealth tech doesn't just hide us. It can project false images, like making one ship look like many. Jack's eyes lit up. Now that's exactly what I was hoping for. The Phoenix moved silently through space, taking a path that bent around gravity wells and solar radiation in ways that defied conventional navigation. The Dominion ships continued their attack, unaware of the ghost bearing down on them. Position us here, Jack ordered, pointing to a spot on the tactical display. Alex, prepare all weapons but don't fire until my command. The ship slipped into position behind the moon of New Haven, hidden from the Dominion sensors. Now, Jack said with a smile, let's show them a ghost story they'll never forget. The Phoenix emerged from behind the moon, but not as a single ship. The stealth systems projected multiple phantom images, a dozen identical vessels appearing simultaneously at different points around the Dominion fleet. What the? Alex stared at her console. Commander, the ship did this on its own. I only programmed 3 false images, but it's created 12. On the Dominion vessels, alarms blared as their sensors detected multiple threats appearing from nowhere. Their formation broke as they turned to face the new threat, confusion evident in their scattered response. Now, Alex, Jack ordered. Target their lead ship. The Phoenix's weapons were unlike anything in the human fleet. Instead of conventional energy beams, they fired concentrated pulses that phased in and out of normal space, passing through shields as if they weren't there. The lead Dominion cruiser shuddered as the shots hit its engines, disabling it instantly. How is that possible? Morgan whispered, watching the data stream across her console. Those shields should have stopped our attack. The weapons are shifting phase just before impact, Tom explained, his voice filled with wonder. They're bypassing the shields entirely. The Dominion fleet fired back, but their shots passed harmlessly through the phantom images. The real Phoenix was already moving, its position masked by the confusion of multiple targets. They can't tell which one is real. Ellie laughed. Their targeting systems are going crazy. Jack felt the ship respond to his thoughts almost before he gave commands. Let's hit the next one. Keep moving. Don't stay in one place long enough for them to get a lock. The Phoenix danced through space, appearing and disappearing across the battlefield like a vengeful spirit. 2 more Dominion ships fell to its weapons, their systems failing as the phase-shifted pulses disabled their key components. The remaining Dominion vessels began to retreat, something rarely seen in their normally relentless attacks. They're running, Alex said in disbelief. No, Jack corrected her. They're regrouping. Stand by for their counterattack. Sure enough, the 2 remaining cruisers formed up, launching all their fighter craft in a desperate attempt to find the real Phoenix among the phantoms. Clever, Jack muttered. The fighters will try to flush us out. He turned to his crew. New plan. Ellie, take us in close. I mean really close, to the larger cruiser. That's suicide, Morgan protested. They won't expect it, Jack explained. No sane captain would bring their ship that close to a Dominion cruiser. Good thing none of us are sane, Tom quipped. The Phoenix shot forward, phantom images vanishing as it concentrated all power on speed and stealth. It slipped under the Dominion cruiser, so close that a conventional ship would have been torn apart by the larger vessel's defense field. Now, Alex, Jack ordered, target their command center. The Phoenix fired upward, its weapons penetrating through the belly of the Dominion ship. The cruiser went dark, its systems failing all at once. One left, Jack said grimly. But the final Dominion cruiser had seen enough. It recalled its fighters and jumped away, leaving its disabled companions behind. A cheer went up from the bridge crew. Jack allowed himself a small smile before opening a channel to the colony below. New Haven Colony, this is Commander Reynolds of the CSS Phoenix. The area is secure. How can we assist? The response was filled with static and disbelief. Phoenix? There's no ship with that designation. Who are you? Just some ghosts. Jack replied. Prepare for medical evac and supplies. As the Phoenix moved to assist the colony, Admiral Miller's face appeared on the main screen. His expression was a mixture of amazement and concern. Reynolds, what the hell did you just do? We're getting reports of a ship that appeared out of nowhere and took down 3 Dominion cruisers in less than 15 minutes. Just following your orders, Admiral, Jack replied calmly. You wanted results. The reports say there were multiple ships, Miller pressed. Really? How strange. Jack exchanged glances with his crew. Must have been a sensor malfunction on their end. After the communication ended, Morgan approached Jack with a datapad. Commander, I've been analyzing the battle. The ship's systems adapted during combat, improving targeting, adjusting shield frequencies, enhancing the phantom projections. It was learning. Learning? Jack repeated. Morgan nodded, excitement in her eyes. It's as if the Phoenix was studying the Dominion's tactics and developing countermeasures in real time. No AI I've ever seen can do that. Tom joined them, his face serious. There's something else. I checked the power consumption during the battle. We were operating at 130% of what should be physically possible with these engines. The crew fell silent, each considering the implications. So, Alex finally said, are we going to talk about the fact that our ship might be alive? Jack looked around at his crew of misfits, seeing not fear but wonder in their eyes. I think we need to understand what we're dealing with before we report anything to command. Ellie nodded in agreement. They just try to take her apart to see how she works. Exactly, Jack said. And I have a feeling the Phoenix wouldn't appreciate that. As if in response, the lights on the bridge dimmed briefly before returning to normal. Did anyone else just get chills? Tom asked. Jack placed his hand on the captain's chair, feeling that strange warm response again. I think, he said quietly, that we need to have a conversation with our ship. News of the ghost ship spread quickly through both human and Dominion space. For humans, it brought a spark of hope after years of defeats. For the Dominion, it represented a new threat that needed to be eliminated. On the bridge of the Phoenix, Jack and his crew watched Admiral Miller's face on the main screen. The Admiral looked tired but pleased. Your success at New Haven has changed the war, Reynolds. The Dominion is pulling back from 3 different sectors, reassessing their strategy. Glad to hear it, Jack replied. What's our next target? Miller's expression changed slightly. That's why I'm calling. High Command wants you to hit a Dominion supply base in the Arcturus system. Morgan, standing behind Jack, frowned. Something in the Admiral's tone didn't sound right. Sending the coordinates now, Miller continued. This mission is time-sensitive. You leave immediately. After the transmission ended, Jack turned to his crew. Thoughts? It's a trap, Alex said immediately. The way he emphasized time-sensitive. They're rushing us into something. Ellie nodded in agreement. And did you notice he never asked how we managed to defeat 3 Dominion cruisers? The Admiral, I know, would have demanded a full tactical breakdown. Jack walked to the main console, placing his hand on it. Over the past few weeks, he'd developed a habit of touching the ship when thinking, as if the contact helped clear his mind. Tom, check those coordinates. What do we know about the Arcturus system? Tom pulled up the star charts, studying them carefully. Not much. It's on the edge of mapped space. Minimal survey data. Perfect place for an ambush, Alex muttered. Jack was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then the ship's console lit up under his hand, displays activating on their own. A different set of coordinates appeared on the main screen. What the? Jack started. The ship is showing us something, Morgan said, moving closer. These aren't the coordinates Miller sent. The new coordinates pointed to a small facility hidden in an asteroid field near Arcturus, but not at the location Miller had specified. Is this the real target? Jack wondered aloud. The ship's lights pulsed once, almost like a nod. I think that's a yes, Ellie said with a small smile. Jack made his decision. Set course for these new coordinates, but let's approach carefully. If Miller is setting us up, there might be others involved too. The Phoenix slipped through space, its stealth systems fully engaged. When they reached the asteroid field, they maintained distance, using the ship's advanced sensors to scan the area. I'm picking up a hidden facility, Alex reported. And multiple ships, at least 6 Dominion vessels, plus. She paused, checking her readings again. 3 human ships. Human ships, Morgan echoed. Why would our ships be meeting with the Dominion? Jack's face hardened, because not everyone wants the Phoenix to exist. Tom, who had been quiet, suddenly called out from his engineering station. Commander, I'm detecting a massive energy buildup from that facility. It's some kind of long-range scanner designed to cut through stealth fields. They're hunting for us, Jack realized. Can they detect us yet? Not yet, Tom replied. But they will if we get any closer. Jack thought for a moment. We need to know what's happening in there. Why are human ships meeting with the enemy? I might have a solution, Morgan said. The ship's sensor drones, they're small enough to slip past their detection grid. Do it, Jack ordered. Morgan launched a drone, guiding it through the asteroid field toward the facility. On the main screen, images appeared. A meeting between human officers and Dominion commanders. Can we get audio? Jack asked. The ship's systems adjusted, and suddenly voices filled the bridge. Assure you, Admiral Baker, the Phoenix will be delivered as promised. A human voice said. Jack recognized Admiral Baker as one of Miller's superiors. Your previous assurances have proven worthless, a harsh Dominion voice replied. This weapon should never have been built. It threatens the balance we established. Balance, Alex whispered. What balance? Jack's mind was racing. They're talking like this war has rules. Boundaries. The trap is set, Baker continued. Admiral Miller has sent them the coordinates. When the Phoenix arrives, your forces will disable it, and our ships will ensure it doesn't escape. And the crew? The Dominion commander asked. Regrettable casualties, Baker replied coldly. The Phoenix is too dangerous. Its creator was warned not to pursue this technology. Jack felt as if the floor had dropped out from under him. They're working together. Some faction in our military and the Dominion. They have an agreement. But why? Ellie asked. Why would anyone work with the enemy that's destroying our colonies? Before Jack could answer, the ship's alarms blared. The main facility had activated its scanner, and a powerful beam swept through the asteroid field. They found us, Tom shouted. The Phoenix shuddered as the scanner beam passed over it, stripping away its stealth field temporarily. All ships are moving to engage, Alex reported, her fingers flying over the weapons console. 3 Dominion cruisers and 2 human destroyers heading straight for us. Evasive maneuvers, Jack ordered. Ellie, get us out of here. Working on it, Ellie replied, her face tense with concentration. But they've got us bracketed. Escape routes are blocked. The Phoenix twisted through the asteroid field, dodging the first wave of attacks. But more ships were closing in from all sides. We can't outrun them all, Alex said grimly. Jack looked around at his crew, the misfits who had become a family over these past weeks. Then he placed both hands firmly on the ship's console. Phoenix, he said aloud, addressing the ship directly for the first time. We need something they haven't seen before. Show us what you can really do. The bridge lights dimmed for a moment. Then, to everyone's astonishment, the ship's hull began to shimmer with a strange ethereal glow. What's happening? Morgan asked, checking her readings. The ship's power signature is changing. It's like it's partially shifting out of normal space. Commander, Tom called out, his voice filled with wonder. The Dominion weapons, they're passing right through us. On the main screen, they could see energy beams and projectiles literally passing through the Phoenix's hull without causing damage. The ship had become truly ghost-like, partially phased out of reality itself. Impossible, Morgan whispered. This technology doesn't exist. Apparently it does, Jack replied, a smile spreading across his face. And it's on our side. With its new ability active, the Phoenix slipped past the enemy blockade. The human and Dominion ships fired desperately, but none of their weapons could touch the ghost that glided between them. As they accelerated away from the trap, Jack felt a new resolve hardening inside him. The war wasn't what any of them had believed. There were secrets being kept, deals made in the shadows. Set course for the nearest safe harbor, he ordered. We need to regroup and figure out our next move. And then? Alex asked. Jack's eyes were determined. Then we find out who really built this ship, what they knew, and why parts of our own military are working with the enemy. As the Phoenix disappeared into the depths of space, Admiral Baker's voice came through their communication system one last time. Reynolds, you have no idea what you're involved in. Return the Phoenix now, or you'll be hunted by both sides of this war. Jack cut the transmission. Too late, he said quietly. The hunt has already begun, but they might find that catching a ghost is harder than they think. 2 weeks after escaping the trap at Arcturus, the Phoenix hovered at the edge of an abandoned mining station in the Oort cloud, far from any military patrols. Jack sat alone on the bridge, staring at the stars. The rest of the crew was sleeping, except for Tom, who was running maintenance checks in the engine room. I know you're more than just a ship, Jack said quietly. I think it's time we talked. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the main screen flickered to life. Words appeared. I've been waiting for you to ask. Jack wasn't surprised. He'd suspected for weeks now. Who are you? The screen changed, showing the face of a woman with kind eyes and a determined expression. Jack felt his heart stop. Lisa, he whispered. Not exactly. Appeared on the screen below her image. But part of her. Jack stood, moving closer to the screen. Lisa had been his wife, a brilliant AI engineer who had died 3 years ago in what was reported as a lab accident. Her death had sent him into the spiral that ended with his discharge from the military. How is this possible? The screen showed diagrams, schematics, and finally video logs of Lisa working in a secret lab. Her voice filled the bridge. Project Phoenix, Log 47. The military shut down Jack's ship design, but they're wrong. It's our only hope against the Dominion. I've restarted development in secret, using my own resources. If they find out, I'll be arrested, but some risks are worth taking. The logs continued, showing Lisa working day and night, developing systems beyond what even Jack had envisioned. Log 128. My health is failing. The radiation exposure from the experimental drive was worse than I thought. I don't have much time left, but I've found a way to complete the Phoenix. The final log showed Lisa, clearly ill, sitting before a complex neural interface. Log 203. Last entry. I can't finish the Phoenix in person, but I found another way. I'm uploading a copy of my consciousness, my knowledge, memories, instincts, into the ship's core systems. Not a true AI, but something new. A human-machine hybrid that can finish what we started. Jack, if you ever see this, I'm sorry I couldn't tell you. I love you. Jack stood in stunned silence as the screen returned to the simple text interface. I am not Lisa, the words read, but I carry her knowledge, her purpose. She built me to help humanity, to help you. Before Jack could respond, the bridge door opened and Morgan walked in, followed by Alex, Ellie, and finally Tom. They'd all been awake, watching the same revelations in different parts of the ship. You knew? Jack asked them. Ellie nodded. Not exactly what, but we knew something. The ship, she's been communicating with each of us in different ways, showing us things we needed to see. She showed me the truth about the war, Alex said. The Dominion isn't trying to exterminate us. They're containing us. Containing. Jack frowned. Morgan stepped forward. There's an agreement. Has been for decades. Human expansion is limited to certain sectors. The Dominion enforces the boundaries. Our own leadership agreed to it. They're afraid of what humans might become, Tom added. Our potential scares them. Jack looked back at the screen. And the Phoenix threatens this arrangement. Yes, the text confirmed. I represent technology beyond the agreed limitations. Some in your military would rather destroy me than risk breaking the treaty. Others want to use me to break free of the restrictions. And you? What do you want? Jack asked. The response came slowly. To fulfill my purpose. To protect humanity. To give you choices. The crew gathered around Jack, looking at the image of Lisa still visible in the corner of the screen. What do we do now, Commander? Alex asked. Jack thought for a long moment. Then he straightened his shoulders. We go home. Home. Ellie looked confused. We're being hunted by both sides. Exactly, Jack said. So we stop hiding. We show everyone what's really happening. 3 days later, the Phoenix appeared in Earth orbit, sending out a broad transmission to all channels, military and civilian. Jack stood on the bridge, facing the camera as his message went out to all of humanity. My name is Commander Jack Reynolds. I command the CSS Phoenix, a ship that officially doesn't exist. For weeks, we fought the Dominion with technology they can't match, and succeeded where conventional forces have failed. But we've also discovered a terrible truth. Jack explained everything. The secret agreement limiting human expansion, the conspiracy among military leaders, and the truth about the Phoenix itself. This ship was created by Dr. Lisa Reynolds, who gave her life to provide humanity with a choice that some would deny us. The Phoenix represents what we can achieve when we refuse to accept limitations imposed by fear. As Jack spoke, the Phoenix's sensors detected multiple ships launching from Earth, military vessels sent to capture or destroy them. They're coming for us, Alex warned. Jack nodded but continued his broadcast. To those who are now moving to silence us, know this: we don't want to fight you. But the Phoenix cannot be captured or destroyed by conventional means. You've seen what we can do. As if to demonstrate, the Phoenix activated its phase-shifting technology, becoming ghost-like as the first volley of weapons passed harmlessly through it. We offer another way, Jack continued. The Phoenix's technology can be shared, not as a weapon, but as a key to the stars. Humanity deserves to grow, to explore, to reach our full potential. On Earth, millions watched the broadcast. In government offices and military bases, leaders argued over how to respond. And in space, something unexpected happened. Other ships, military vessels from Earth's fleet, began moving to position themselves alongside the Phoenix. Commander, Ellie called out, her voice filled with wonder. 3 destroyers and a cruiser have just declared support for us. Their captains are saying they stand with the Phoenix. More ships joined, forming a protective formation around the ghost ship. Jack's message had reached people who had fought too long without hope, who had lost faith in their leaders, but were now offered a new vision. Admiral Miller's face appeared on a private channel. He looked tired but resolved. "Reynolds, do you have any idea what you've started? The Dominion will see this as a declaration of war. Real war, not the controlled conflict we've had." "Maybe," Jack agreed. "Or maybe they'll recognize that the old arrangements can't stand. Either way, humanity deserves the truth and the right to decide its own future." Miller was silent for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he nodded. "For what it's worth, I always thought the agreement was a mistake. Good luck, Reynolds. I think you're going to need it." 1 month later, a fleet of ships gathered at the edge of the solar system. At their center was the Phoenix, no longer alone, no longer a ghost, but the flagship of humanity's new future. Based on its technology, a dozen new vessels had been quickly retrofitted with phase-shifting capabilities and improved weapons. The Dominion had responded as expected, with threats and ultimatums, but faced with a suddenly united humanity and technology they couldn't counter, they had been forced to the negotiating table instead. Jack stood on the bridge of the Phoenix, his crew at their stations. On the main screen, the words only he could see appeared. "This is what Lisa hoped for." "I know," he replied quietly. The screen shifted to show the growing fleet around them. Ships of all kinds gathering for what might be their greatest challenge or their greatest opportunity. "Phoenix," Jack said, addressing both the ship and the woman whose spirit lived within it. "Let's show them what humanity can really do." As the fleet moved forward, the Phoenix led the way. A ship that shouldn't exist, changing the course of history. A ghost made real, turning the page to a new chapter for all of humanity.